there and welcome to Gaining Vision. I'm Melanie. Have you had an opportunity to subscribe to the channel yet? If not, take a second, hit subscribe, and please don't forget to like and share. How do you handle conflict? I personally don't like conflict. I'm one of those people who like to shy away. But as a leader, you have to know how to deal with conflict. Let's face it, at the workplace or any organization that has volunteers, more than one personality, there's bound to be conflict. It could be as simple as somebody looking at somebody the wrong way or not pulling their amount of work in the workplace, or it could be that somebody said something to somebody. Whatever causes the conflict is when two parties don't agree on something. It can be as simple as what the presentation should be about, or it could be about the way somebody does their job. When two parties have conflict, the first step, obviously, to resolution is the two parties work it out together. So, for example, if John and Joe are on the same team and they don't agree with the timeline, and John has an issue with Joe, he needs to go say, Joe, you know what? I really don't feel comfortable with this timeline because of X, Y, and Z. And then John can say, well, I really feel, and give his side. So the first step is that the two parties that are in conflict should try to work it out with one another. Obviously, that doesn't always work because some people are just get their backs up and they don't want to deal with it. And it can escalate. So the next step in conflict resolution should be then when one party really feels strongly, they may want to talk to their supervisor about it to get some guidance. But not everybody's comfortable about going to their supervisor because they feel like a rat. They feel like they're, talking behind somebody's back. So as a supervisor or a manager, it's imperative that you oversee your staff or your volunteers. You keep an eye open. You keep an ear open. You listen to what's happening in your organization. Whether that means you're walking around the office floor just doing a roundabout to hear what's happening, or in the coffee room just paying attention to the conversations that are happening. Pay attention to the way your staff are feeling when they come in the morning. Are they saying hello in a happy mood? It's important for a manager or a supervisor to keep tabs on the temperature check, as they call it, in the office. If you're a good manager or supervisor, you're going to know right away when there's tension. You're going to pick up on it, whether it's through the actions, the feel of the office, and you need to address it. So you don't have to address it in public. No, you need to find where the source is of the conflict, and then you need to talk to those individuals individually. So you might call John into the office. So John, how are things going? What are you working on? Just general conversation. Never accusing, never saying you've done this or you've done that. Just get a feel for where they're at. Hear their perspective. If you want to have a little bit more to the point, if they're kind of bouncing around and not getting to that, you may say, I've noticed some tension with you and Joe. Can you tell me about what's happening from your perspective? Now you've heard John's perspective. And then a good manager will sit back, digest what they've said, obviously record any notes that need to be taken because that's important to have, some documentation. Then you need to just digest it and not run off to get Joe right away. You let it go by. You do your meetings, you do whatever else. Maybe later in the day you call Joe in and have that same conversation with Joe and get his perspective. Now you have two sides of the story. And we know when there's conflict, there's two sides and somewhere in between is the truth. So this is when you may want to source out other sources. So as a manager, you have your supervisors that should have a good temperature check, and probably some senior staff too that you can call upon without bringing attention that John and Joe are having issues. You do it in such a general way. It could be that you're having a team check-in, or it could be that you're going to do a team activity that you can kind of see things happening for yourself. If things don't seem to settle down and they start to escalate more, then it might be an opportunity for you to bring John and Joe together to have a candid conversation as the manager, as the mediator. Only after that, when you've tried everything to resolve the conflict, at that point, if there's no conflict resolution and it starts to affect the other staff, then you need to take another step back and look at the big picture. Any good employer or manager or supervisor knows that you have to give people 3 chances. 3 chances to prove themselves, because it could be that John and George is having an off week. Maybe something's happening at home and you're not sure the full story. So 3 chances for them to resolve it. And let's face it, 3 chances could take a week, it could take 2 weeks, it may take a month. But you need to be keeping your finger on the pulse. Managers need to be patient. Obviously the job needs to get done, and the deadline may have come and gone by this point, but the tension may still be there. So what is a manager to do if the resolution doesn't happen on its own? Obviously you're the manager, you need to make decisions. But you have to make a decision based on the facts, not on gossip, not on hearsay, and not on your personal perspective. This is sometimes tricky if you have a subconscious bias. So each of us has that bias in us, and we may not even know it. The fact of the matter is, maybe something has happened years ago, or the way we were brought up, we may have a vision of something in the way that John or Joe should have been behaving. We can't let that subconscious bias get in our way. We need to make a decision that's going to affect the company as a whole. You know, you've given the 3 chances, you've had the conversation, you've tried to mediate, none of it's working. You may have to get rid of John or Joe, whatever. Maybe it's not over the deadline, but maybe there's been other tension throughout. But the fact of the matter is, conflict, there's stages to resolving it before you just jump the gun. Too many times, employers, managers, supervisors think it's easy just to get rid of somebody. They don't realize the talent that they may be losing and the energy and time that goes into training new staff or volunteers even. So if you're a manager or a supervisor, I encourage you to take a course on conflict resolution if you're not comfortable with it. In our own personal lives with conflict, it's the same thing. Have a conversation with the parties involved. If it's somebody, you and somebody else having conflict, talk it through. If you can't solve it between the 2 of you, maybe you need somebody to help mediate the situation. A lot of times you can't get rid of that person in your life. They may be a family member, but you do have to have some sort of resolution in order to live in a happy world. Especially with a family member, you don't want to have the conflict affect everybody else. Conflict is inevitable no matter what aspect of our life, but the way we deal with it can make it or break it. So how do you deal with conflict? Pay attention to it the next time it comes up at your workplace. How do the managers handle it? I'd love to hear your feedback and your thoughts on this topic, so please comment below. And until next time, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share, and I'll see you next time.